That was Iman Jamal Rahman, and a member of the Three Amigos. So Islam, Judaism, and Christianity being represented by his group, presenting an interfaith message.
Very good. I've heard good things about the Interface Amigos.
Yeah,
I'll have
no,
to get the other two guys on the show.
yeah, we should. And I watched them on a TED presentation online, and they were great. Here's the issue. I'd like to see what you think about this. I mean, ultimately, I think, and this is my opinion, people who of any religious tradition, if they're rational and reasonable, eventually come to the understanding there are many paths to God, if there is a God, and we should respect them all. And we are travelers heading in the same direction in different religions, but going to the same place. But the orthodoxy of some religions, especially let's say Christianity or any tradition, any religion where there's a tradition of conversion, and that being the purpose, it's basically the attitude is it's our way or the highway, and it's not only in religions. It's in different. I've seen it in different spiritual groups, and on and on. It always creates problems. So for me, the problem is always the orthodoxy having a narrow vision. And I don't see how any Orthodox religious leader could ever work in an interfaith way, other than to say we're tolerant to them, but they're not right, they're wrong, we're right, and ultimately we have to convert them. You think?
Yeah, I agree. And there are people who are very uncomfortable with people who are different from them religiously or ethnically. And there are people who embrace diversity and enjoy diversity. There are different psychological types, and the orthodoxy in any religion is either going to be intolerant of outsiders or critical of them or attempt to convert them or hostile toward them, even if that's where you can get violent. But the orthodoxy are often most hostile toward people within their religion who are not orthodox. They just sort of ignore, the outsiders, but the insiders who aren't quite as orthodox as they like or have differences of interpretation, that is more emotionally jarring to them, I think, than
Right.
even outsiders.
Yeah, and Judaism, as I understand it, is not a religion of conversion. They will allow for conversion, but they're not out there proselytizing, join our group. So
Right.
maybe as a group, uh, Jewish people are more tolerant, you could argue, even the Orthodoxy, because you don't have to become one of them. On the other hand, there are Orthodox uh, Jewish groups that are very isolated from everyone other than their own group. I think of the some of the Hasidic traditions, and actually even amongst them, I remember a Lubavitch rabbi, which is one sect in the Hasidic group, that said some of the other Hasidic groups are like spiritual ghettos, were his words, because they don't get involved with
Uh,
anyone or anything. So it's very interesting, very complex, and very
yeah,
confusing at
and
times.
and you're right about that. And there's probably historic reasons why Jews are less interested in conversion or aggressiveness. It probably has a lot to do with them being in diaspora most of their existence and
Hmm.
being a small minority
Hmm.
in countries or cities where the dominant group was Christian,
Right. I,
or in some cases Muslim. So maybe that sort of defensive posture led to, or maybe it was right there from the beginning, the absence of conversion. I don't know, but
hmm.
I do know that there are Orthodox groups within Judaism who are evangelical within the
Judaism.
context of
Right.
of other Jews.
Right.
So
Right. I had a Hasidic friend, and it was interesting. He was visiting me, and he I was bringing him to the house. I was going to bring him to the house of some Jewish friends of mine who were, what you would consider reformed, maybe, conservative, not orthodox. and they said, "Please don't bring him over." And I said, "Why?" He's going to try to, get us to be more religious and all. For
Right.
me, as a non-Jew, he didn't.
He,
There
he
was no
wouldn't
no
bother
hassle.
you.
But for them, they were
Right.
nervous he was going to come and start laying a trip on them. It's fascinating how
Well,
complicated the whole thing gets.
you should see when certain people hear my last name.
Well, how did they react?
Well, if they're Orthodox Jews, they would recognize my Jewish name, and sometimes they expect certain things of me, or
Right,
will
right,
try to disapprove of certain
right,
things if
right,
they find them out about me.
right.
Whereas if my name were Ramundi, I wouldn't get those
Well, you
reactions.
can use my name anytime to get out of. The other
I always
thing.
tell them I'm from Whoopi's side of the family, but they don't believe me.
Very funny. One thing I did learned a little bit more about Islam today from Jamal, and one of the things I've heard from a lot of people, and I think to a certain degree it's true, and that is that the Islamic members of the United States have not done enough to educate people about Islam and speak out against those folks who they feel are not presenting the right face of Islam to the rest of the world, or critical of them, and they've been a little too silent and not out really doing a better job at what they should be doing. I don't know if that's a fair or
I
unfair criticism.
I don't know how fair that is. I've been hearing that since 9/11, and they don't have spokespersons, the way
Hmm.
more organized religions do, especially in America, where they're a small minority. And like other immigrant groups, the first couple of generations tend to be very keep among themselves. So this was a new expectation to speak out, in that
Hmm.
way. And from what I gather, there's a lot more speaking out than people realize
Right.
because it doesn't get in the news.
Right. It
If there
also
was
it's a responsibility of the news agencies to give the coverage, and they don't
Yeah,
always do
yeah.
that.
It's much easier to, cover some, aggressive person's, who commands a microphone and wants to speak out, say anti-Islamic things. But, an ordinary imam or an ordinary Muslim speaking out in a community center or a school, no one covers that
Right.
in the press, but I'm sure it goes on all the time.
Interesting. What one story I really enjoyed that he told was about the prophet on his way to heaven or his way back from
Yeah.
heaven or wherever, speaking to the prophet. I guess they called Moses a prophet, the prophet
Yeah.
Moses, and saying, no, no, there's no way people are going to pray 50 times a day. See what you can get it down to. And I also didn't know that the Shia, as I think he said, pray three
They were
times a day.
going
The
for the
Sunni,
wholesale
yeah,
price.
was it the Shia that do three times and the Sunni five, or
Yeah,
vice
yeah,
versa?
I didn't know that. I didn't know that either. But it reminded me of the scene in Mel Brooks' movie where he plays Moses and Moses is carrying three tablets and he says, "I have brought you these 15 commandments," and he drops one. He says, 10, 10 commandments. but but to get back to a more serious thing, one of the interesting things we heard from Jamal about his experience with the Amigos is they all got to know each other in the
Right.
context of post 9/11 interfaith work. And this is such a common observation when people who are different from one another actually get to know people,
Right.
instead of just going by stereotypes and public image or whatever image they have, then things change.
Right.
And it's that exposure. That's why you have so much more openness in urban areas
Right.
than you do in rural areas.
Right.
People are just exposed
Right.
to people,
Yeah, you'd
and
mentioned that before. I mean, you grew up in Brooklyn. I grew up right outside of New
yeah,
York. I was born in Jersey City. So you were exposed you had friends that were Jewish, that were Christian, that were,
yeah.
Hispanic.
No
You got the whole
Muslims in
thing.
those days.
No, no, but it also you were able to tell. Actually, my father was in education, and my brother in public school education. My brother went to Catholic school for a while, and then my father said, that's not the way the world is. All Catholic boys. There's boys, there's girls, there's Christians, there's non-Christian. You got to get to know everyone, and and he felt that
Yeah.
was the great advantage of public schools. So,
Yeah.
I agree with that.
And I brought up in the interview this article in the front page of today's LA Times about Muslims being afraid
Hmm.
because of the imminent inauguration of Trump and his rhetoric. And interesting piece of that is there's fear of legal things he might do or had threatened to do, but there's more fear about what could be unleashed in the minds and hearts of individuals because of that rhetoric, and we've already seen that can happen. And those people who are afraid of the other, or feel threatened by the other, they're more likely to do harm.
Hmm.
So,
No, hopefully in some small way through our show, we can help educate people and give people
yeah,
exposure to different groups. And imagine when I was 12 years old, if I had seen a Buddhist monk walking down the street, what I might have thought. I might have run the other way. You know, you don't know. So I think part
you
of it
might
is,
have thought it was a nun who shaved her head.
yeah, exactly, and dyed her outfit. So, by the way, you never see nuns in full regalia anymore. You rarely see
No,
priests
no,
wearing their outfits anymore. Times they have changed.
the times have changed. Hey, you don't even see people wearing suits and ties as much anymore. So,
Thank God. Uh, hopefully, we're two of them. Uh, anyway, another very interesting guest, and we ask our listeners to let us know what you think. Go to our website, spiritmatterstalk.com. You can find out how to communicate with us there, how to email us, and any information you'd like, any feedback, any suggestions for guests, we will be very open to. So, Phil, until next time.
okay, salam.